Hey everybody, it is Wednesday, September 23rd. I'm making a mini video today about math. We are going to be talking about multiplication. Multiplication is a huge part of third grade. If there's anything you need to know before going to fourth grade, it is multiplication. So let's get started. What is multiplication? All multiplication is adding equal groups. Okay, it has to be the same number. So if you see, I have 3 groups of 4. So here's one group. My mouse pad's not the easiest to work if you can't tell. 2 groups. A little wonky. And 3 groups. So you would say that you have 3 groups of 4. So this would represent 3 times 4. And what you do is you add up all the different dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you know that 3 times 4 gets you 12. The cool thing about multiplication is it's like addition. The commutative property does apply here. So we know that you could actually say 4 times 3 and it gets you the exact same product. So we have 3 times 4 and 4 times 3, which gets us 12. Our numbers that we multiply together are called factors. So your 3 and your 4 are factors, and the answer to a multiplication problem is actually called the product. All right, I'm going to move this so we can see better. Let's move to our next slide. Put that right there. So now we're going to be talking about SCRAM. You might have seen that on my very first slide. And you're thinking, what is SCRAM? Well, if you're thinking about schema of SCRAM, you might be thinking, oh, like to get lost. You might tell someone to scram. But that's not at all what we're talking about. Last year in third grade, one of my students came up with this acronym, and what it represents is different ways to solve a multiplication problem. These are all the different ways that we went over in math class that you could go about getting a product. And she put this all together and made a poster for us, and we have called it SCRAM ever since. So SCRAM stands for skip counting, cookie method, repeated addition, array, and memorize. Memorize is the last one on here because it's the last thing that comes. Whenever you go through and you're able to skip count, you're able to do cookie method, you're able to do repeated addition and arrays, it all just kind of makes sense, and you do it so much that you memorize it. So we're going to look at 3 times 4 and 4 times 3 on all these different ways of going about a multiplication problem. Skip counting. Skip counting would be like if I said 3, 6, 9, 12. 4 different times I skip counted. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I counted up by 3 every single time. You can also count by 4. So you could do 4, 8, 12. Here's 3 different times that I skip counted, and I added 4 every single time. So skip counting could be how you solve a multiplication problem. The next way you can solve a multiplication problem is the cookie method. Here is my tray of cookies. These little circles are your chocolate chips. I have 3 different cookies. So I'm going to type that in. So I have 3 cookies and 4 chocolate chips. So I know all together I'd have 12 chocolate chips. Because I have 3 equal groups of 4. It has to be equal groups in order for multiplication to work. My next way is repeated addition. It's kind of like skip counting. But rather than counting, you're adding it all together, which is kind of what you do whenever you skip count. For example, you could do 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Well, I know 3 plus 3 gets me 6, and 3 plus 3 gets me 6, and now I know 6 plus 6 gets me 12. The same thing applies with 4 times 3, so it'd be 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. 3 different times I added up 4, and that gets me 12. 4 different times I added up 3, and it still gets me 12. The next one's an array. You guys might have never heard of this, but we're going to be doing a lot of arrays whenever we Google Meet. So an array is the picture that is shown. Okay, so this actually represents 3 times 4 because your first factor is how many down, and your next factor is how many across. So we call this a column, one that goes up and down. So I think of like the Colosseum in Rome. And then across, we call those rows. So I have 3 different rows of 4, and all together I would have 12. So this again, 3 rows of 4 gets me 12. So 3 times 4 is 12. That's your array. And the last one is memorization. Just simply knowing when I say 3 times 4, you can spit out the product 12. When I say 4 times 3, you can spit out the product 12. By the end of 3rd grade, this will be easy peasy for you because we're going to later on move to some fluency checks and some different multiplication tests. So that is all that I have for you guys today. I wanted to introduce Scram before our first Google Meet because that is what we're going to be going over for the first couple of weeks in our Google Meets for math. Have a great Wednesday. I hope that I see you guys soon. I really miss you guys in Google Meets.